So happy Sunday. I want to get into what happened last night. Something pretty funny happened last night. At least if you ask me, it was pretty funny. So we're going to get into that and we're going to talk boxing. This is Punchlines, and here we go.
Due
to some violent content, parental discretion is advised.
I know you're gonna dig this.
The Maestro.
Fist hits the bag, 1, 2, and comes back. Single fist here, you hear that beat?
Think outside the box and BOXing on top of them, clocking them, send them back to the corner for oxygen.
Yes.
Golden gloves, I know
Just
myself,
rolling.
I know the game, it's not a game, I know the ring, I want the belt. Finding the rhythm to hit them, split them and touch them and tip them, hit that six pack with that quick jab. Uppercut the bro, making them fall down, breaking them all down, switch stands, tippy toe, in the hands, give them some more. You are not Muhammad Ali, anomaly, or Mayweather, Pacquiao, prodigy, and Mr. Fist, this, S2, hot to rock, think out the box, you know I got the rock, speed back.
That would be a little round.
Happy Sunday, everyone. This is Maestro, and this is Punchlines. Thank you for joining me on a Sunday afternoon, at least Sunday afternoon here in New York City. I wanted to get into this real quick because I thought it was quite funny. Last night, I was watching the broadcast from Orlando, Florida, the Royal Caribe resort and casino out there in Orlando. Edgar Berlanga had a successful fight, took out McCrory by knockout towards the end of the 6th round. And for those of you who don't know, that fight was actually to position the winner as a mandatory challenger for the WBA title. Now, some people seem to be confused about what that means. They seem to be confused on the broadcast. They seem to be confused at the post-fight press conference. Eddie Hearn, I know he's not confused. He knows exactly what that title shot meant. I think even Edgar Berlanga knew exactly what that title shot meant. But what's happened here is Edgar Berlanga last night became a mandatory for the championship title, the WBA championship title at 168 pounds. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the rankings, I've brought them up over here. I have them up on the screen over here. There are no rankings for February in the WBA. Okay, so these are the January 2024 rankings. And if you go down to the super middleweight division, you'll see that the WBA super champion is Canelo Alvarez. So Saul Canelo Alvarez is the WBA champion, super champion at 168 pounds. So for those of you who don't remember, the super title was essentially created when Lennox Lewis was undisputed heavyweight champion. He wasn't too interested in fighting the likes of people like John Ruiz. So they created a super title that essentially you don't really have to defend, and then they created a regular title. So the regular champion is David Morrell Jr., okay? Osbari David Morrell Jr. from Cuba. You can see him right there. He's the WBA world champion, okay? Now, I don't quite understand how a fight between the number 3, Padraig McCrory, and the number 8, Edgar Berlanga, leads to somebody becoming the number 1. I'm sure Christian Mbili has something to say about that. I'm sure that Eric Bazinian has something to say about that, the Armenian fighting out of Canada. But guys, what are we acting like we don't all know that the winner of yesterday's fight became the mandatory for David Morrell Jr.? Are we going to just play games here and act like the winner has some kind of entitlement to the Canelo Sweepstakes? The Canelo Sweepstakes, meaning Canelo Alvarez? I mean, that's not what happened yesterday, guys. So I'm going to get into it. I mean, what it reminds me of, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, when I was a kid, you know, I'd come home from school and it'd be mail in the mailbox, and it would announce this like prize money. And I used to get all excited about it. All right. And my mom would say, listen, you know, this is a scam. I don't know if anybody really wins this. You're going to fill all of this stuff out. We're not going to get anything. I'm sure you guys remember it. If you're 80s babies, grew up in the 90s, the Publishers Clearinghouse. You guys remember?
Come on.
That's what I used to think.
Do you know what this side could mean to you? Millions of dollars. So stop making excuses. Enter the one and only Publishers Clearinghouse Sweepstakes.
There's no place like our house.
Come on, send it in.
So, I mean, that's what's going on right now in the world of boxing. Everybody's waiting for the Canelo sweepstakes. Okay, look, I don't know. Did anybody last night? I know I was very tired being out here in the East Coast, and I was falling in and out of sleep between 11 o'clock and midnight, because I usually am up at around 5:30 on most days. Did anybody last night watch that fight and see Edgar Berlanga get a 6-round stoppage over Padre McCrory and say, you know what? Yeah, that's the guy I want to see fight Canelo. That's the guy that's got a shot at beating Canelo. That's the guy that I want to see fight Canelo more than David Benavidez, more than Christian Mbili, more than David Morrell Jr. I don't know. I'm not one of those people. I'm really not. Virtuoso, you in the building. Thank you for joining me. Salute to you as well. Salute Jesus M. Salute to everybody who's in here. M. Easy Boxeo. Okay. Salute to all of you who are here with me. If you're here with me, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to try to start going live a little bit more consistently than I have over the past few months or so, because I got to get back up into this, and Saturday and Sundays are going to be the days. So if you don't know, this is Punchlines. Now you know. We're going to get into this a little bit more. I'm going to talk about a couple more other things. Let's go.
Gorilla than the planet of the apes. I write a punchline and plant it on your face. Eat a punch that you ain't even got to taste. Here's a shot that you ain't even got to chase.
All right. So look, I outlined it. They obviously paid a sanctioning fee to the WBA to leapfrog a couple guys and become the #1. But that #1 position is not the #1 to the super champion. That particular slot is reserved for the regular champion, who is David Morrell Jr. But they're all out here acting, and it started with the post-fight presser. I mean, you want to talk about a soliloquy. You want to talk about one fantastic oration. You want to talk about a guy heaping high praise upon another person. Go back and listen to what Eddie Hearn was saying about Canelo after the Berlanga fight last night. I thought it was comical. I thought it was entertaining. Do I think that that's going to necessarily get them that fight? Not necessarily. But let's hear what he had to say, because I don't want to bring up the DAZN videos and have this taken down. So I'm going to bring up what was said at the post-fight press conference. Let's have a look. Let's have a listen. Here we go.
Vamos a ver si puede pelear con él en mayo. Si no, septiembre. Pero eso.
Let's actually rewind that back, and I'll run through the English and Spanish here. We've got Keith Connolly, who's Berlanga's manager. We got Berlanga, and of course, we've got Eddie Hearn, the promoter. Here we go.
I mean, Edgar, first question, you know, it's been a while since you had a knockout. How do you feel?
I feel amazing. First and foremost, I want to thank God for his victory. Yeah, I feel good, man. I'm happy. We prepped very hard for this man. I know he was coming to fight. You know, the Irish guys come to fight. He was undefeated, and he was coming to prove a point. You know, so we prepped very well for him.
All right, so we've got a guy with a Puerto Rican accent there saying that he's #1 in the WBA. Here we go.
Sí.
So is it time now for Mexico versus Puerto Rico? And Berlanga says yes.
Sí, con Canelo.
Yes, with Canelo.
Vamos a ver si puede pelear con él en mayo.
We're going to see if we can fight him in May.
Si no, septiembre, pero esa pelea con Canelo yo quiero.
Or if not, in May and September, but this fight with Canelo, like, I want it.
Eso es grande para boxeo, ¿me entiendes?
This is big for boxing. Well, it might be big for boxing. Is it bigger than Canelo versus David Benavidez? I highly doubt that. Honestly, I highly doubt that it's bigger than David Morrell Jr. or than Christian and Billy, because I think that those would be much more competitive fights. I don't have an issue with Edgar Berlanga personally. I like the guy. I've seen him a few times in person. I'm close friends with somebody who's close friends with somebody in the camp. But I don't think he's ready for Canelo right now. But more to the point, there's another guy roughly the same age with far fewer fights, whose name is David Morrell Jr. You just paid a sanctioning fee to take on David Morrell Jr. David Morrell Jr. was actually in the building yesterday in Orlando because he was there to support Andy Cruz, right? A fellow Cuban, a guy who also immigrated to the United States to pursue a professional boxing career here. And they did not mention him. There's actually another interview, I'm going to bring it up right now, where Eddie Hearn is one-on-one talking about his views of the immediate future for Edgar Berlanga. Let's have a look. Let's have a listen. Here we go.
Firing till the end, and that was exactly the statement that we needed from Edgar. He's now WBA #1. He's the mandatory challenger for Canelo Alvarez. That fight's going to happen. Whether it's in May, whether it's in September, whether it's in May 2025, it's going to happen. And I promise you this, he is a guy that will stand in front of him and fight him. He's a young guy that won't back down.
Okay, again, they know perfectly well that he is not the #1 challenger for Canelo. There's a super champion, there's a regular champion, and then there's a regular champion that makes defenses against guys like Berlanga that are coming up the rankings. So no, they did not earn a shot yesterday at fighting Canelo Alvarez. They earned a shot at fighting David Morrell Jr. But let's keep going.
And on that, we're going to head in here for the press conference.
Let's go. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Andy.
And there you have it. And finally, I'm going to get to a quick video here where Edgar straight up asked about David Morrell Jr. This is courtesy of Fight Hype. They were at the fight last night. Here's what they have to say. Here we go.
I know you just said, obviously, if not Canelo, then you would take on Munguia. And you had a lot of support in the building today, but you also had a little bit of opposition here visiting, watching in your fight. You know, after the fight, I met up with Morrell, and he said he would take that fight. If you couldn't get Munguia, if you couldn't get Canelo, would you consider Morrell for your next fight?
Nah, we on to something different right now. You know, I know they gave us a WBA medal, #1 for the title, but yeah, we want the bigger things. We want Canelo. Medal, #1 for the title, but yeah, we want the bigger things. We want Canelo.
Enough said.
Other than
I was on mute, guys. Sorry, I was on mute. No, what I was saying there was essentially, I mean, Keith Conley looks pretty nervous over here. Doesn't look too comfortable. Pull it up in a little bit of bigger screen here. You can see him there on the left. They bring up David Morrell. It's like he doesn't want him talking about David Morrell. Don't mention David Morrell. Please don't say his name. Please maybe say Jaime Munguia. Maybe say Canelo. No, definitely say Canelo, but don't say David Morrell Jr. Whatever you're doing. Look at Keith Connolly here. I'm turning into one of these body language experts on CNN.
We on to something different right now. You know, I know they gave us a WBA, number one.
Careful. Watch what you're saying.
You know, we want Canelo.
Enough said.
So look, at the end of the day, it's pretty obvious that Edgar Berlanga knows what time it is. They earned a shot at David Morrell Jr. Okay, so there's no way if Edgar knows that Keith Conley doesn't know and that Eddie Hearn doesn't know. So it's like you paid these sanctioning fees for what? All right, I mean, there's pretty much no, like, I guess for maybe 30 seconds to a minute to a half hour to an hour, you're going to pretend to play the game that you somehow earned a shot at Canelo. So let's start saying Canelo's name. You didn't earn a shot at Canelo. Anybody who's been watching boxing and understands the regular title and the super title and the contender system and all of this other stuff knows that the winner of that fight, and again, I don't understand why, because as I went over earlier, when you look at these rankings, I mean, they straight up leapfrog Christian Mbili, who was number one. I was actually looking forward to Mbili versus David Morrell Jr. They also leapfrog another guy based out of Canada, because Christian Mbili is based out of Canada, and Eric Bazinian is an Armenian in Canada. They leapfrog those two. Somehow the number 3 versus the number 8 became a number 1. But let's not play games and let's not pretend that this is the Publishers Clearinghouse Canelo Sweepstakes and that you earned a shot at that lucky ticket, because you didn't. You earned a shot at David Morrell Jr. That's who you earned a shot at, not at Canelo. So let's get a David Morrell Jr. fight. Let's start talking about that, because, look, they're around the same age, okay? Berlanga's got way more experience, right? He's got way more knockouts, right? So what's the problem? You're the number 1 for his title. What's the problem, right? Take on David Morrell and earn your actual shot at Canelo Alvarez. Let's not pretend that the number 1 to the regular champion is the actual shot at Canelo, because it isn't, all right? Earn the shot. Take David Morrell Jr.'s spot in the WBA. Take that regular belt, and then maybe, look, maybe if you beat David Morrell Jr., people will start believing in you that you can do something against Canelo, right? Because right now, I don't know, chat, let me know. Right now, does anybody out here believe that Edgar Berlanga is going to beat Canelo in May or beat Canelo in September? If you guys think that, let me know in the chat. Let me know. And by the way, let people know where you're from, what city you're from, what country you're in. Let us know. Hit the like button as well. Hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. But does anybody here believe that the guy we saw yesterday take 6 rounds to knock out Padraig McCrory has a shot at Canelo? I like Edgar Berlanga. I'm not one of those guys. Edgar, you want to make me one of those guys? Fight David Morrell Jr. Then I'll believe. Beat David Morrell Jr. Yes. Canelo. Publishers Clearinghouse. Right? I'll make me a believer. I will become a believer. Beat David Morrell Jr. You just earned a shot last night. You just earned a shot. David Morrell Jr. is the WBA regular champion. For whatever reason, you just overtook Christian Mbili. For whatever reason. I would have loved to see Berlanga against Mbili. Sign me up for that. But apparently, you want a Canelo fight. So, fight the guy you earned the shot against, David Morrell Jr. Look, if David Morrell Jr. loses to Edgar Berlanga, Maestro's going to be calling for the Canelo fight against Berlanga. Yeah, sign me up. Berlanga versus Canelo. But you know what? You got to beat David Morrell Jr. first. That's what I'm thinking. And by the way, there's other names too that are being brought up. All right. We got Virtuoso. Salute to you, brother. Virtuoso is saying that Diego Pacheco would annihilate Berlanga. Well, I mean, they're both signed to Matchroom. I don't know if Matchroom's going to make that particular play, having their two guys face off against one another. If I was Matchroom, I'd try to get Pacheco or Berlanga in against Jaime Munguia. That would be a good fight, I think. Either one of those two guys, because then you got Golden Boy versus Matchroom, and you keep it in-house under DAZN, right? But there you go. Let's see what M-Easy says. M-Easy, salute to you, brother. M-Easy saying, nobody believes that Berlanga is ready for Canelo, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. The business of boxing will dictate if he fights Canelo. I'm telling you right now, the business of boxing will not dictate that he will fight Canelo, because no one is clamoring for that fight. Nobody is clamoring for that fight. People are out here acting as if Edgar Berlanga is like the modern day Tito Trinidad, selling out baseball stadiums in Puerto Rico in the Madison Square Garden, right? And you know, is ready for a mega pay-per-view against Canelo like this is Tito versus Oscar from 20 years ago. I mean, more than 20 years ago now. Boy, are we not all getting old. But I don't see that. I'm seeing a guy in Edgar who had a string of first-round knockouts live on ESPN with Top Rank. For whatever reason, Top Rank severed ties. He signs up with Matchroom. His previous fight was at the theater at MSG. I was there. His most recent fight was in another small venue in Orlando. You don't jump from that to a Canelo fight. You don't jump from that to people clamoring and demanding a Canelo fight. Want to get the Canelo fight? Yo, and Billy's there in the WBA. And by the way, again, the guy you earned the shot against, the guy you paid the sanctioning fees for, is David Morrell Jr. Let's not play games. Eddie, you know that I know, maybe not that I know, but you know that the people know that that was not for a shot at Canelo last night. And shame on the people that were there in the media section asking these questions about, oh, you got the WBA title #1 slot. What about look? Shame on you. You applied for a media credential. You got into a post-fight press conference, and you don't understand that title shot was not against Canelo. You don't understand that, but you're sitting there in press row, taking a microphone and asking a question to the fighter and to the promoter, like you're some newbie in the sport. Maybe you are a newbie in the sport. Who's asking these questions? Come on. So that's enough of that. If anybody wants to chime in on that, I'll share the link here. I did want to talk about one more thing. I was questioning whether or not I should even talk about this, to be honest. But I've seen a lot of interesting people commenting on fights. You know, it's no secret the kind of people I'm a fan of, the kind of people I'm less of a fan of. You know, on DAZN, on ESPN. I like the ESPN commentating crew. I've said that many times. People are surprised at that I like Tim Bradley, that I like the whole crew over there. I like the DAZN team a lot. Specifically, I'm a big fan of the pairing between Corey Erdman and Gabriel Rosado. I think that they are a great pair. They might be my favorite pairing in the sport in terms of calling fights. I really like that pairing, Corey Erdman and Edgar Berlanga. I was talking about Berlanga a second ago. Gabriel Rosado. I really like that pairing. But every now and again, you get people in there, and I'm like, why did they bring this guy in? They already have a full roster here. For instance, when I see Sean Porter on DAZN, I don't really understand it. I mean, personally, the roster's full, right? And I'll leave it up to you guys to think to chime in on whether you think Sean Porter is good on the DAZN broadcast. Some of you have already told me your opinions about that. I've given my opinion about that. And I mean, it has nothing to do with the fact that when I was out in Vegas with my wife at a fight, I said, hey, Sean. And in front of me and my wife, he turns to me and he says, oh, I'm not doing interviews right now. My man, I wasn't asking you for interview. I was actually just saying hello. But that's got nothing to do with my views on his ability to broadcast the fight. I just don't particularly think that he adds much to the DAZN broadcast because the roster's already full. All right. So I've seen other fights, right? And I'm going to bring on Virtuoso and Hamed in a moment after I just finish my quick thoughts on this. You know, where I'm like, okay, yeah, he's not really a boxing guy, but it's comical, right? I'm talking about President Trump. We've got the oil. We've secured the oil. We're here for the oil, right? As he famously said about stealing Syria's oil. Another funny one, which is not quite so funny, is where he was talking about essentially purposely bankrupting Venezuela. And we almost had them. We're ready to take the oil, ready to move in. The oil was almost ours. But I'll be honest with you, President Trump was quite entertaining when he was doing the Vitor Belfort Evander Holyfield fight. And yes, I admit I bought that pay-per-view. And then it's not looking too good right now. It's not looking too good for Evander. I thought it was pretty good. But one that I really don't understand was this Amir Tyson dude yesterday. Did he say anything that was like constructive the entire broadcast? Was there any reason for that guy to be on the broadcast last night other than the fact that he's Mike Tyson's son? I mean, I get it. You know, people get things because they're the son of people. I mean, they're in Iraq, you had Saddam Hussein and you had Uday and Qusay Hussein, who got their jobs because they were the sons of Saddam Hussein. Is that what's going on here? I mean, the entire broadcast, I'm like, why is he here? He's saying nothing. Matter of fact, most of the times it's less than nothing. There are actual people here who could be contributing to this broadcast even more. Guys like a Gabe Rosado or like a Corey Erdman, who, by the way, already worked for DAZN. Why is he here? Anyways, end of rant. Let's bring on Virtuoso. Let's bring on Hamed. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing okay, Maestro. First off, I want to say I think Hunter Biden should take his dad's job, and it should be dirtbag versus dirtbag election day.
Big up. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I don't have a lot of good things to say about Hunter Biden, but at least he doesn't look like the guy from Weekend at Bernie's.
Yes.
When he's on the podium. And if anybody, look, I'm a Virtuoso. I think you were 80s baby, grew up in the 90s like me, so I'm sure you get that preference.
Yes, I do.
But Hunter Biden may be a lot of things, but at least he can speak in complete sentences.
Yes.
I don't know anything else about him or his politics or whatever, but at least he can do that. So, but yeah, I mean, what did you think of Amir Tyson last night on the mic, so to speak?
Well, I didn't listen to much of the broadcast. I usually have the volume down when I watch fights. But if I had the volume up, I probably would not hear him. I don't know. If he doesn't, if you're saying he doesn't add as much to the broadcast, then I guess he's on mute too, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it got to the point last night where my wife was like, yo, did you hear what he just said? I was like, nah, I tuned him out like 4 rounds ago.
But I just want to get in touch, stay in touch with what happened yesterday, with the fights.
Yeah. So let's talk about the fights. One thing I do want to say is in terms of the undercards, I think Eddie's doing a pretty good job because what he's done is he's allotted a lot of these slots to like smaller promoters, fighters, and having them face each other.
Right.
And I think that really leads to good competitive fights. So I think that's a model that he should continue with. Let's have a Matchroom guy in the main event, Matchroom guy in the co-main event, do their thing. We get it. But on the undercard, good mix of guys in competitive fights. I thought the undercard was fire, just as my man Nando is saying in the chat. Go for it.
Yo.
Virtuoso.
Yeah, man. The one I think I started tuning in was, I think it was Hernandez. I think it was a junior welterweight fight. Where it was a good scrap, I think it was, and it's like one man went down and then the other guy, came back and it just battered the guy's face. I can't remember their names, but that's when I started tuning in because I'm sorry, but my attention was in the fucking Knicks and Celtics game yesterday. My eyes were diverting attention to two, sporting events. But
so you're talking about the Antonio Vargas. No, not that one. You're talking about are you talking about Aaron Aponte, Joseph Fernandez? You talking about that one?
Was that the one before the Antonio Vargas fight?
That was the one that was like on the off TV section of the card.
No. I joined I tuned in like in the televised.
Okay, well, Aaron Aponte lost that one, and I thought he lost the fight. But what was interesting to me is that Joseph Fernandez was the clear B side and got the decision. So that was nice. That was nice to see a guy who deserved to win the fight win. Are you talking about the bantamweight fight between Antonio Vargas and Jonathan Rodriguez? You talking about that one, right?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that was a good fight too.
Good back and forth, but you reach a point where it's like you swing too much and then you get caught and it plays into the other guy's hands. But real quick, man, I just want to say that you're right. I think that it's shameful of the media to try to deceive people into thinking that Berlanga is some kind of a mandatory for Canelo, and for him to say that, yeah, I'm that guy. Like, dude, you gotta stop. You gotta respect the process, And if the WBA were like gullible enough to think that, oh, this fight is just gonna be another classic to the Great Mexico versus Puerto Rico rivalry, then you're smoking some high grade weed, man. I don't know what you see in this guy that thinks that he's a bankable name just yet. Because like to me, he hasn't really elevated the level of competition. Like he's kind of taking baby steps. Now I like the way he fought yesterday. He moved quite well, but there were some times where like he kind of takes his time when he's in front of his opponents. He doesn't shoot the jab as often as he would like to, and it allows his other guy, to kind of try to jump in and have a rhythm of their own. So I want to see more assertiveness from him, along with that defense, that improved footwork. I mean, he still keeps his head on a certain line, but if he was up against a guy that could push the pace on him, he'd be in really big trouble early,
Yeah, like a Christian and Billy.
Right.
And my whole thing is when I'm looking at guys fight within a specific division, I'm not only looking at like what I'm seeing in terms of those two guys. My mind takes me to places like, what would David Morrell Jr. do to Padraig McCrory? What would Christian and Billy do to Padraig McCrory? And like you said, I felt that the punches from Berlanga we didn't see the punch volume that I'd particularly like to see, because you're going to need to be throwing more punches against higher level guys than he did against that guy. And he still seems to be loading up on his power shots. Now, he did land it in the 6th, but the guy I saw yesterday is not ready for Canelo. Like not in May, not in September. So are we using the name for clout? Because everybody who knows boxing knows that you did not earn a mandatory shot at Canelo last night.
Yeah, I feel like he's several steps behind in terms of skill set and marquee value.
I agree. Hamed, go for it.
Yes, Maestro, salute. How's it going? Yes, with
good,
you
good.
also.
Thank you, Hamed. Salam.
Good to speak to you guys, man. Been a while. Yeah, I pretty much agree with what both of you guys are saying, but here's where I would disagree. If Canelo stays with PBC, then I don't know if some of these opponents he will end up fighting, but if he goes to DAZN and Matchroom, because I don't know what's going on with the PBC, then I think that may be the reason why they're pushing for Berlanga. Because if he goes back, I know he signed a 3-year deal last year, but say if that deal is a bit contingent on whatever his his deal because of what happened at Showtime, then maybe you'll end up fighting guys like Berlanga and Munguia. I personally don't want to see the Berlanga fight, but if you can't fight Benavidez, I honestly would rather see the Munguia fight, because I can't see Canelo fighting Morrell at this stage of his career. I think Morrell will struggle to get opponents. That's just, I think, the business side of boxing. Unfortunately, he's a very good fighter, but he's just at the moment, it seems like not marketable because of the risk reward.
Let me say this though: this venue he fights out in Minnesota, the capacity there is bigger than the capacity at the theater at MSG, which is where Berlanga fought last time, and it's definitely bigger than the capacity at the Royal Caribe in Orlando, where Berlanga fought last night. I mean, that's like what, a 2,000 seater, 3,000 maybe.
Yeah.
Royal Caribe. Correct me, guys, if in the chat if I'm wrong here, but
I'm not going to correct him.
I don't want to pretend like Berlanga's selling out like NBA arenas right now.
Yeah.
He's not.
But here's my counterpoint. Hold on. Like, I'm not trying to question you in terms of what you know about the capacity of this seat, but I'm of the opinion they're giving out comp tickets for Morrell fights too.
At the venue in Minnesota. Yeah, maybe. I mean, the PBC, they have done that, right? But I mean, look, I don't think that Berlanga is a bigger star right now than, and I'm not saying David Morrell Jr. is a star. I'm not saying that. I just don't think his profile has increased at all since he had that.
I think they're both on the same plane.
Has it increased since the knockout streak?
But what are we talking about? Viewership or just because he's headlined more cards?
The viewers are on DAZN, but I mean,
he was on ESPN headline.
He was on ESPN before, so I'm assuming he had a bigger viewer base back then. But we don't really know. But what we do know is that in terms of the size of the venues he's fighting in, you know, I mean,
yeah.
It
doesn't command dollars.
Bring to the table for a Canelo fight, because he wouldn't be a mandatory challenger. He'd be an optional title defense. So, what's the argument there for Edgar Berlanga to take on Canelo?
There pretty much is none, because like I'm just gonna say this like very bluntly, like he does not have a following compared to what Cotto had or Trinidad had, you know, and to me that's like. Saying that this fight is sellable, to me it's like you're putting a Nike swoosh on a turd and thinking that it sells more. Like, I'm sorry, but like, no, it's not happening.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. And when I think of Puerto Rican champions of recent note, I mean, maybe you could argue his buzz is bigger than Subriel Matias. You know,
Collazo at minimum weight.
Collazo at minimum weight, but I remember the buzz about Juan Manuel Lopez. I'm sure you guys remember him.
Oh yeah.
I mean, to me, his buzz was bigger then than Berlanga's is now. Personally, I remember when people were clamoring for that fight with Gamboa. You remember that?
Yeah.
Right.
And Xander Zayas, to me, like it's smoldering. It's not. It hasn't quite ignited yet, but
yeah,
it's on its way. You know, they put him in there in title contention. We'll see if he's really for real.
Yeah. So what I think. Go ahead, Hamed.
Sorry, I was just because I agree with you guys. I don't want to see the Berlanga fight, but I think it's one of those fights that's gonna be shoved down our throats. I just got that feeling because of how they're trying to market this Canelo Berlanga fight, the whole Puerto Rico, Mexico, even though I don't think is anywhere near like on the same scale or as big as those past rivalries. But I just got a feeling like with Canelo, what they're going to try and do is he'll end up probably fighting one of these guys from Matchroom or DAZN or whatever, and it'll just be one of those fights that will be just an easy fight for him because he's fought guys in the past who were probably much bigger profile-wise, but weren't much of a threat, like Chavez Jr. So I just think they'll try and use it and overhype the fight, but I personally don't want to see. If it's not Benavidez, I like the Munguia fight because realistically, I just can't see that Morrell fight ever happening.
No, and the thing is, the names have been mentioned in the chat. I've been mentioning them here on the show. There are people on the Berlanga side of the street, and I'm using air quotes for all of the people who will be listening to this on Spotify and other podcast platforms. There's Beck the Bully. He's with Golden Boy. There's Jaime Munguia. He's with Golden Boy. There's Diego Pacheco. He's with Matchroom. And obviously on other sides of the street, you've got Christian Mbili. You've got David Morrell Jr. If you want to make a case that you are the man to take on Canelo, build your profile, fight one of those guys. Ideally, you want to do it in a big room at like the Garden, right? Beat one of those guys, and let's go. I mean, look, if they do a Puerto Rican Day Parade fight week in New York City at Madison Square Garden, and you put Subriel Matias in the co-feature, and you put Edgar Berlanga against David Benavidez or against Christian Mbili in the main event, and he like destroys either of those two guys, sign me up for the Canelo fight in September. Literally, sign me up for that. But like, you gotta take that. You gotta take that step. Virtuoso, go for it.
I'm sorry to cut you off, man, but like when you told me that Gabriel Zotto was on ringside, I'm thinking of, yo, he could come back out of retirement and go fight him. I like to see that fight. Man. He's been calling him out. I was thinking
I don't want to see that, man. Have you seen Rosado's record?
Yeah, I have seen Rosado's record, but look, I mean, I don't think
knocked out Beck the Bully.
Yeah, he did knock out Beck the Bully. I don't think that fight though makes a case for the Canelo fight. Yeah, I think it would be. I think it would be a very entertaining fight if Gabriel is up for it. There's no doubt about that. And Hamed, to your point, yes, he's got double-digit losses. Right?
Yeah,
so
yeah. No,
there is that like one fight. He's obviously past his prime. And me personally, for the guy, I would like to see him continuing as a commentator because I think he does tremendous work with Corey Erdman. It's just that they've kind of slotted those guys into like the house show, small show, tandem slot. You know what I mean? Then to bring Mike Tyson's son for the big events, I guess. But
I didn't even know that was his son. Sorry, I didn't even know that was his son until I read on Discord later during one of the fight. I think it's during the Andy Cruz fight. I just thought there was some guy called something Tyson. So I was not really a big fan of his commentary, but I'm not really that high.
I can't even call it commentary. It was like just like short,
just a fun
salads. Like Sergio would say, "Oh yeah, he's demonstrating a lot of power in this exchange," and he'd be like, "Yeah, Sergio, there's a lot of power in that exchange." I'm like, "Yeah, Sergio just said that."
Yeah, he was
great contribution.
I preferred President Trump during the Evander Holyfield fight against Vita Belfort. I love Evander. But he's not looking too good right now. I mean, at least it was entertaining. Go for it.
Yeah, because at least he provides banter. But this guy, I don't think he has enough broadcasting experiences. I just think he should learn the craft. Go to school for that. And start off small.
Yeah, start off small, bro. Because DAZN, like this is the big time. DAZN is what was supposed to replace HBO and Showtime Championship Boxing. On that level, Philly Drew Irish has joined us. Philly Drew, I gotta hear from you, bro, because it's Mets spring training season. Big season ahead. We might be winning the World Series this year. Philly, talk to me about the Mets.
That's a good joke, by the way. That's a good joke. What up for?
Talk to me about the Mets, Philly Drew. Let's go Mets.
The Phillies are up 4-0 on the Yankees. So let's look at it like that. First of all, the Phillies are doing good right now. So
yeah,
I give you a Phillies hat, Maestro. You can become a Phillies fan. But
maybe
I'll be honest, man. What I saw last night, I saw nothing but a D-class fighter. Wow. He's not good at all. Berlanga is really not as horrible. Like seriously. And it's even worse when you have commentators trying to be as biased as they can. Even when McCary lands a punch, they say Berlanga lands a punch. Like really, like it's biased as best when it comes to DAZN commentary to hype their fighters up. And now they want to talk about him fighting Canelo. His own people don't even hype about that shit. They know Berlanga has no chance. They know Berlanga doesn't last 5 rounds. It's really like this. He's not the mandatory to Canelo Alvarez. He's the mandatory to David Morrell's version of the belt.
Process.
Thank you. Respect the process.
Like seriously, David Morrell is the mandatory in the WBA to Canelo Alvarez. He has a Reggie belt. Like if we look at it like this, of course they don't want to mention David Morrell because they know David Morrell would destroy Edgar Berlanga inside a minute probably. Like that's how bad this would be. Like this dude, all he fought was taxi cab drivers, and when he moved away from the taxi cab drivers, he has an inability to knock somebody out. Now he finally gets a stoppage and everything against an Irishman that's probably a class lower than Jason Krigley. Yeah. If we look at it and everything.
35-year-old undefeated has never fought really on what I'd say like the world level.
But you know DAZN did push for Munguia and Berlanga if the Canelo fight, if either of them don't fight Canelo. So that's one thing I do think that's a good fight.
Ahmed, he doesn't last 3 rounds against Munguia.
No, I don't disagree, but I'm saying I favor Munguia, but that's still a fight I would rather see if Canelo don't fight either one of those guys.
But if we're talking about the future of Puerto Rican boxing, it's Xander Zayas. That is the future of Puerto Rican boxing. We should all concentrate on watching that kid grow, not this Edgar Berlanga guy.
I'll be honest. I think the future of Puerto Rican boxing is somewhere between Subriel Matias and Oscar Collazo. I mean, I'm a big fan of what Oscar Collazo is doing personally. But look, I want to get to a super chat real quick. Thank you so much, Sly Tendencies. He says, "How you doing, Maestro? I thought Berlanga did what he should have against the competition that he had. That's real. No hating. Berlanga versus Morrell Jr." Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Sly Tendencies is not only a subscriber, but he's also a member. And I actually owe Sly Tendencies something, and I forgot about it, but I got him and with something. Sly, reach out to me, please. You can text me for that. So what I will say though is I got another name, Puerto Rican Day Parade, and you just said it. I think somebody said it was you, Drew. Why not do Jaime Munguia against Edgar Berlanga? Because they're not getting the Canelo fight, either of them. Puerto Rican Day Parade, Madison Square Garden. Do it that week. Do it that weekend with Subriel Matias as the co-feature. What do you guys think?
I think the Matias fight should be the main event. I don't even see how you can even give Berlanga a main event spot when you know that fight's gonna I don't think he survives 3 rounds with Jaime Munguia. I'm sorry.
Wow.
It will be bad for Puerto Rican Day Parade to have him fight on that day against Jaime Munguia, because if you look at what they're trying to match him up against, Eddie's trying to look at his deep pool of fighters that he can bring up, that knows that Berlanga can beat. He's like two Irishmen that are really not that good. they only been exposed to the European field, which is in Ireland, Northern Ireland, and everything. Like, it's a shame and everything. I think if Canelo ever entertains this fight, it's a cherry pick.
Well, it's definitely a cherry pick. But what I think that they were trying to get away with was a slick little salesman move right there, trying to make out that little medal that he got, you know, that medal that the WBA gives out now. And I think they copied that from the WBC. I'm pretty sure the WBC is the one that started giving out these medals after the fights. But they were trying to make out that, yeah, #1 mandatory position in the WBA equals shot at Canelo. No, it doesn't. And I even showed earlier that the cat was let right out of the bag when Edgar Berlanga said it himself when he was directly asked about David Morrell Jr., who was in the building last night because he was supporting his compatriot Andy Cruz Jr., who I'm going to ask you guys about in a moment. He was there. He was asked about it, and he said, no, I understand we won that position, but, you know, we're trying to do other things right now. So, I mean, they paid a sanctioning fee. They got the #1 spot. They leapfrog Christian and Billy, make that make sense. But then they don't want it. So
yeah.
What are you going to do?
Well, it's a shame. David Morrell may become the most avoided fighter at 168.
I think he's been the most avoided fighter at 168.
Like, and people are going to say, oh, he only has not 10 fights and everything. Who cares how many fights he has? Those guys that'll be in fast track like he is. So, but when it comes to Andy Cruz, I'm going to be honest. I wasn't too hype on him at first in this first fight, but when I'm seeing him now, I'm seeing more of a guy that's willing to know, hey, no, I gotta be spectacular on how I beat these guys to get noticed, and he's doing it. So, is he a threat to anybody at 135 yet? Yeah, you could say he's a threat and everything because he's actually is facing guys that'll actually have pro fights under their belts, that are ranked and everything. So, do we see him climb that ladder right away and potentially challenge for a eliminator? Probably in the next maybe 2 fights will be an eliminator for sure. He already has like one of those like NEBO belts, I guess. So
yeah,
yeah,
I'm sure sorry too, because he's training out of Philly now with Boozy Ennis as well. He to me looked a little bit more devastating in his penultimate performance, but he still looked good yesterday. We'll see. They were talking about Keyshawn Davis after the fight. Based on the way Keyshawn's been looking recently, I know he got the win against Pedraza, although I think Pedraza looked pretty depleted, having come down from 140 to 135. Like,
yeah, about that.
Yeah, go for it, Virtuoso.
The better Andy Cruz looks in there, the less Keyshawn Davis will talk. He's been since then, since his last couple of fights, he's been more focused on Teofimo, who's up at 140.
Yeah, they're trying to make that kind of top rank grudge match, and it is what it is. Go for it, Hamed.
I was just gonna say, I know people say and they believe, whatever, think that Morrell is struggling to get big fights, but a couple of years ago, I thought the same case was for Benavidez, who had, I think, a lot more fights than Morrell. I know Morrell wants to fight Benavidez even when he had about 4 or 5 fights, but I'm saying if you take that aside, Benavidez was struggling to get some of the big fights until he got those fights with Plant and Andrade.
I don't buy that. I don't buy that because Samson had an opportunity to make Benavidez versus Caleb Plant for unification back in 2019, but his greedy ass was like, "No, we gotta kick the can down the road, and try to make more money off of that fight."
I remember that. But aside from that, then Benavidez got himself to blame for getting stripped. But aside from that Plant fight, which I don't know what they were played at. I heard that the PBC also wanted to try and over marinate that fight, which I don't know what the reasoning was. I think there's something involved as well. But apart from that, like Andrade and these guys weren't in a rush to fight him. I think Morrell's being more avoided because Benavidez himself is not exactly reluctant to fight Morrell as well. So I think Morrell, he should maybe get some opportunities in the near future because he's only had 9 to 10 fights.
Yeah, but they've all been at, I would say not all, but at least the ones more recently been at the level that Berlanga's been fighting at.
But he's being
I would
fast
actually
tracked
say
as
higher,
well.
actually. I would actually say higher.
But he's been fast tracked as well, though. Benavidez and some of these other guys, was the 8-9 fights in, they weren't fighting the level of competition Morrell is. So I think Morrell, obviously, he's moving in the right direction because Berlanga's opponents at that point were bad. It's just he was getting overhyped by Top Rank and ESPN, and they put him on big cards and trying to make him a co-feature when I don't think they should have been overhyping him at that stage.
Absolutely. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button and invite people out to the party. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you're on IG, thank you. If you are on X with us, thank you as well. And if you're on one of the podcast platforms, this thing on demand, thank you as well for that. I think the only way that a fight will get made between a guy like Morrell Jr. and Berlanga, who's apparently number 1 right now, would be if the WBA orders this to purse bids and holds a purse bid. I believe they're headquartered in Panama, and we'd see. But I'd be surprised if the Berlanga team pursued purse bids on that, although I'd be happy if they did. I do have a last question. I'm going to be going upstate next Saturday for this fight, and I want to ask the group what you guys think about the promotion of Jose Lopez, the top-ranked fighter, the featherweight champion with the IBF. It's interesting to me. You got a guy who's Mexican, a guy who I think is a pretty exciting fighter, a guy who went overseas to the UK or that area anyways, and won fights over there in exciting fashion. Why is he the co-feature to Kolmatov versus Ford? Like, why is he not the main event? Why is he fighting in upstate New York? It's kind of a conundrum to me. Like, I don't really understand that. Virtuoso, go for it. I heard you wanting to chime in.
Yeah, I just feel like these are good fights, but like they're under the radar.
Yeah, I mean it's a heavyweight. It's a featherweight doubleheader, both for titles. You got Ford and Kolmatov fighting for the vacant WBA, right? That was vacated by Lee Wood, I guess, because he's moving up in weight. And you've got Lopez versus Abe, the Japanese fighter, fighting for the IBF title. I don't know. I just kind of feel like this is kind of a little bit under the radar in general, and I think that Lopez should be a much bigger figure in the sport than he is. What am I missing here about Lopez?
Well, what's missing from Lopez is unification. That's
he wanted to fight someone.
That's what increased his profile.
Sorry, yeah. I thought he wanted to fight someone from Top Rank. Was another Mexican? Was it Navarrete or someone else? Because
I believe it was Robesi.
Oh yeah,
Robesi's lost in his last fight, obviously.
Former
right
champion now.
Yeah, he's no longer a champion right now. I don't know if Top Rank got options on Rafael Espinosa. I'm pretty sure he's a Zanford Promotions fighter. He's now the WBO champion. But I just think in his own right, like Venado Lopez should be, I don't want to say like a star, a superstar, but I'm just very surprised that he's a co-feature fighting under Kolmatov against Ford. Like, I don't know. It's just weird to me.
It is. Yeah,
I don't really understand it.
I get it. I understand. But, you know, the funny thing about these top rank cards is that their main events are usually start off late. So I guess it gives the impression that Mexicans are probably going to be drunk and tired by that time. So might as well put that the previous fight, ahead of that one.
Well, I wasn't drinking, but I was definitely very tired last night. I was falling in and out of sleep, trying to watch Edgar Berlanga against McCrory.
Right.
Did you manage to catch the Japanese card? Because I fell asleep.
I watched the whole thing. I got up at 5 a.m. and watched all of the fights.
Yeah, that was the better card, didn't it? Overall,
I thought that was a solid card from beginning to end. And at the end of the day, you had 3 super solid fighters in 3 world title fights. Kosei Tanaka is an extraordinary talent. I mean, his star is kind of dimmed a little bit because he took that loss, obviously, to a fighter who's one of my favorite fighters in the sport. I'm talking about Kazuto Ioka when they fought each other. Then you had Junto Nakatani in the co-feature, another super exciting fighter. And then you had a guy come out of his brother's shadow a little bit in Inoue, and he earned a devastating one-shot body shot KO. I thought it was a very solid win for him out there. And I think maybe he'll be able to create a little bit of room. I mean, it's always going to be difficult when your older brother is the monster in a way, right? But I thought that he put in a very good performance as well. What were your thoughts, Virtuoso?
Well, I thought all 3 of those Japanese men did an excellent job, and it goes to show that Japan is having a renaissance of talent right now. There's 9 belt holders in today's professional boxing, and they're catching up to the U.S. We got like 12 or 13, and I really like what I'm seeing from these guys. They're very disciplined, and they're able to travel to other countries to perfect their craft. Like you got Nakatani, who trains with Rudy Fernandez. He has to go to the United States to learn, how to fight like a more American style, because the way I see him is like he's like a praying mantis, but with power.
Bro, he's a 5'8" southpaw. Previously, he was fighting at 115 pounds, knocking dudes the hell out. But he's still tall at 118, and his punch speed he's got length and speed and power and great footwork. His ability to get in and out of range, but also keep his opponents at bay and disguise that quick back left hand, which he can throw as an uppercut, he can throw it as a hook, and he can also throw it as a straight left. He's got a lot of variety in that left hand.
He's got an array of shots, man.
100%, and he hides it so beautifully behind that right jab, which, by the way, he hooks off of as well. I mean, he's just a complete package.
And people were telling me, oh, Bam and Junto's going to be I don't think so, guys. I don't think Bam wants that fight just yet. He's more closer to super bantamweight, and him versus Inoue, that is going to shut the whole country down.
Oh, that's a huge fight. That is a huge fight. And the thing is, he's moved out of Bam's orbit anyways now, because Bam is at 112, right? And
he just got up to 115 super flyweight.
Yeah, sorry, but he left the Superfly division and is at
to fight Sonny Edwards, but now I think he's coming back up.
Oh, okay, he's moving back up. Okay, but even if he goes back up, he's going to 115 for the Estrada fight, right? Yeah. And Nakatani just left 115 and won a world title at 118, and apparently my camarada, for those of you that are interested in terms of his politics, Chocolatito is planning to move up to 118 as well.
Yeah, I just read that.
I don't know how good that is a move for Chocolatito. I mean,
I don't know about that.
He hasn't fought, did he? Him and Estrada haven't fought since the third fight. Almost 2 years ago?
Can you imagine Chocolatito against Junto Nakatani? I don't want to see Chocolatito go out like that.
Nah, I don't
want to see Chocolatito go out like that, man. I know
he's already a Hall of Famer. His legacy is set. I just
your legacy is set.
Maybe Ioka would be a good fight for him.
Yeah, but Ioka's at 115 though. And that's the thing. It's like, why are all these guys avoiding Ioka? Bam is avoiding it. Estrada is avoiding it. That December fight against the Venezuelan was supposed to be against Estrada.
Estrada, but Estrada didn't like the offer that was made to him, and that's why him and his team left the negotiating table.
Right, and Bam doesn't seem to want it either, because every time I ask Eddie Hearn at one of these press conferences, and by the way, I don't know what you're doing Tuesday, Virtuoso, but there's a press conference at the Barclays for Ryan.
Is that noon?
1:30 p.m. Ryan and
Haney and Garcia in the
I'll see if I could check it out, because it's right before I go to work.
Well, there you go. I mean, and the funny thing is, it's right when I'm at work. If they just held these press conferences at 3 or even at 4, I think, or even at 5, I think it would be better for everybody. And it doesn't make sense to me, because they do the West Coast press conferences, right? Usually at like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, which means that they're at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So it's like, why do they always try to do the East Coast ones in the middle of the day? Anyways, that's just me. It makes it difficult for me because of my main job, obviously.
Do you think that fight is going ahead? Because I see Ryan Garcia was complaining about the venue, and now he's calling out all these UFC fighters. Like, I don't know what to make of this whole situation. It seems like his head is not in the right place.
I think that he's just constantly questioning the people around him and the decisions that he's making and the advice he's getting from people that are causing him to make those decisions. Because, look, I mean, I went over this yesterday when I talked about this on yesterday's live stream. You guys should all go back and check that out. The reason this isn't happening is because of Canelo. I mean, in Vegas, right? Because they've essentially block booked these arenas. The PBC has a great relationship with MGM Resorts, which runs the T-Mobile and the MGM Grand and the Michelob Ultra Arena, and they would not put on 2 pay-per-views in such a short space of time. So they're not going to have the fight in Vegas for that reason. Now, you could argue, well, the fight should be in California. All right. I don't know what the situation there is with that. I don't know why it couldn't. What do they call it? The crypto.com. It used to be the Staples. Right. I know Ryan's fought in Anaheim as well a few times at wherever it is that the Mighty Ducks hockey team plays. But look, for whatever reason, they chose New York City. It is a major hub media wise. I'm happy about it being in New York, because then I could go to the fight. Good for me. I take the 4 train or the D train right from the Bronx, get out at Barclays Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn, and boom, I pop upstairs. I'm right at the venue. But at the end of the day, if you're confident that you can beat this dude, why does it matter? Why does it matter if it's in Brooklyn? Could be anywhere, right?
Well, I don't think he's confident.
I don't see what the whole issue is. Salute to you, Nando. Thank you for the super chat, brother. Appreciate that. And he says Ryan is acting like a scared farm tool. He's a bootleg De La Hoya. I can't defend Garcia anymore.
Yeah.
You know what? I kind of am with Nando on that. You know what turned the corner for me? And it's funny because I'm out here like Patrick Bet David drinking these Celsius PBD podcast. Was when he was on that PBD podcast with Patrick Bet David. I don't really think he came off too well the way he was talking.
That was a long interview, isn't it? I haven't listened to him.
But he's like talking about how humble he is while boasting. It's like, people who do that, they're bragging about how humble they are, and it's it's like,
something off with that kid, man. Like, I seriously think he needs help. Like, I don't know if it's a thing that because he's got to this stage at such a young age, or he's just mentally not in the right place, because I just don't think he's built for some of these not just fights but even the sport. He's definitely I don't think in the right mindset, because he was saying for the Tank fight he knew he was going to lose. A lot of people paid a lot of money for that fight who are still not happy with what he did. Like, he essentially just came and for the paycheck and quit.
He
like.
handicapped himself. He went in there with a separated rib and a rehydration clause and a catch weight. I mean, you want to talk about handicaps? That's 3 handicaps right there.
He agreed to it.
He agreed to it, and then he blames the people that are around him, who, by all accounts, told him not to take that fight. Oscar was telling everybody that would listen that he was against him taking the fight under those conditions, but that he wanted to go that way, and that's what he decided to do. Apparently, that was his manager's and his decision, not his promoter. So for him to go back later and blame Golden Boy for it, it's like it doesn't. Which is pretty much what he was doing in the PBD podcast. It didn't really make much sense to me, to be honest. So Lando saying Haney better get that KO. Now his chance to cross over. Another decision ain't gonna cut it. Look, I think that Haney's performance against Regis Prograis is one of the most underrated performances of 2023. He essentially shut out in every single round an elite world champion fighter.
And you dropped him as well.
And dropped him. I mean, it was a shutout performance. Other than, you know, in many ways, that's more impressive than like a first round knockout. Going in there and doing that for 12 rounds. I mean, it was a complete domination. I don't think Haney got enough credit for that performance personally. And I also think he looks a lot stronger and a lot more physical at 140 than he did at 135. I have no idea how he made that weight. I saw him in Vegas before the Loma fight, and he looked like a member of the Walking Dead. Like he was gone. Like King Tut, right when they were putting him in his tomb. Like that's how he looked. So I knew that he was going to be stronger at 140. And I remember even calling Joe Habib about it from Vegas right when I saw Haney there, because you know how they do a morning weigh-in, right? I was actually outside the weigh-in area when they did the morning weigh-in, and I saw him walking away, and he like his cheeks were all sunken in, his eyes. It was like you could see he was not physically in the best shape. But then he went in, and I thought he beat Loma, and a lot of people don't think he beat Loma. But regardless, I knew he'd look better at 140. And I think
he almost backfired, didn't he, in the 9th or 10th round. What you were saying, that I think that weight had a bit of effect on him, because I thought he's boxed very well for the first 6 to 8 rounds, and then Loma came on strong. And that, I think one of the reasons was not just because Loma is really that skilled, but I think the weight, because to me he is cutting a lot of weight.
A lot of weight.
And the longer the fight goes on, he impacts it.
Yeah. And so long story short, I think he's gonna look more impressive in his second fight at 140 than he did in his first fight at 140, and I think he's gonna demonstrate a lot more power. So the thing is with Ryan, I mean, you can catch him between those shots, because he throws his punches, his power shots in a way where, you know, you saw it in that fight against Luke Campbell. We saw it obviously when he got knocked out by Tank, that you can catch him while he's throwing. Maybe he's working on this with Derek James, but you know, you throw that punch, you've got to be defensively ready to block or to move. And it's in those moments where he gets clipped, right? So it was with the knockdown against Tank, and of course with the knockout against Tank, and it was also there with when he got dropped by Campbell. You know,
but even Oscar Duarte hit him a lot. Like you could argue Duarte may have been winning that fight. I thought you could have argued either way, but that to me was not impressive. He was turning his back. He was getting hit way too much. And that guy was like a lightweight.
Well, that's the thing, that Duarte was a tailor-made opponent for him. And we're going on all week about, this is a dangerous fight. I can't believe he's fighting Duarte. And I'm saying to myself, no, Duarte is exactly the style that's suited for him. Because
it wasn't a great performance. So up until the stoppage, I don't think he looked good.
No, I know he took a lot of criticism too for his variation of the Philly shell and the shoulder roll, which seemed to be more about turning his back than
that was with Derek James as well in his first fight.
Yeah, so
I don't know. Derek James has not been impressive recently.
Yeah, so we'll see how he looks. But I got to get running, guys. I'll give you the last word first, Hamed, and then Virtuoso. Go for it.
I was gonna say, hopefully, Canelo could fight someone better than Berlanga, but I'm not that high on Canelo and Crawford. Like, I don't like that fight because Crawford's a welterweight, and I would rather see Crawford fight someone, if not welterweight, than junior middleweight. And I am a big fan of Crawford, but I don't want to see him just fight a guy who's 3 divisions bigger than him and essentially lose because of the weight and size difference. And I think he should chase some of the guys at junior middleweight because there are more options. So if Canelo could fight Munguia, Benavides, I would like that fight. But if not, then it looks like he will end up fighting one of these guys like Berlanga or maybe even Ahmed Eubank. I don't know about how much to believe in that, but it looks like he fights someone who a lot of people don't want to see. But that's all I got, man. Thanks for having me on, all right?
No, you're welcome, Hamed. Thank you for joining me, and hopefully you can join me again next week, Sunday, or next week, Saturday, because I'm now a weekend warrior. I got to do a lot of things during the week, teaching. I got to do my coaching. And I also have to get some of my guys some fights. I got a bantamweight out there that I need to get a fight for. This guy's far too talented to be on the shelf not fighting. And I gotta get him a fight. I gotta get one of my middleweights guys out there a fight too. So I'm working to get these guys fights. So the podcasting is gonna be Saturday, Sunday. Virtuoso, go for it.
Yeah, man. I could go for a Canelo versus Crawford fight over Canelo versus Jamal Charlo, or Canelo versus Edgar Berlanga. Because the last 2 men that I just mentioned haven't really done much to improve their marquee value, to really put themselves out there, and they're fighting, a low quality of opponents. It's too big of a step-up fight. I want to see Canelo announce his opponent already. I'm tired of the Canelo news. Come on, we need something right now.
What's your gut telling you, Virtuoso? Give me a name, gun to head.
To be honest with you, man, I have no idea.
Oh, right? I mean, your life's on the line. Give me a name, man.
Oh man, shoot. I would probably say Munguia.
Really? I mean, I wouldn't be upset with a Munguia fight. I think Munguia Canelo's a good fight, actually, entertainment wise.
Listen, Benson's hit or miss, but like he said that, okay, Heyman is willing to pay him $35 million for that over Charlo. And I would say if you want to make generational wealth, go for it, man. Go for the most you can. And Samson is a liar. He doesn't have $55 million unless his name is Turkey Al-Sheikh.
Yeah, maybe we need His Excellency to get involved. I still have to watch that pay-per-view from yesterday, the Bellator versus PFL. I support
right. They did a cross-promotional.
Yeah, I support anything that goes against the UFC. I'm not even a huge MMA guy, but I remember watching Pride mostly because I didn't like the UFC and I just like fighting. And the fact is, His Excellency got rid of a shitty-ass UFC pay-per-view that was supposed to be part of Riyadh season and replaced it with PFL champions versus Bellator champions on a card that also included Clarissa Guot Shields fighting MMA. So I actually...
That's innovative.
Yeah, I got very innovative. And the thing is, UFC will never do a cross-promotion. So
because they're monopoly.
His Excellency also doing something with one FC, doing champion versus champion with that one too. Hit the like button, guys. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. Consider joining a membership because I make a lot of my videos on demand, members only. So, but at least hit me with a like button. Invite people over to the party. So last words, Virtuoso, go for it.
Salute, Maestro. Thanks for having me on, man.
All right, thank you. And if you are interested in Tuesday, do let me know. There was Virtuoso He's a fellow, free-thinking, they'd call us radicals here in the United States. Mainstream political thoughts in most other countries, but here considered radical, a lot of the stuff we think. But I digress. That's my guy, my comrade over there, my man Virtuoso. All right, so look, we came for the oil. We took the oil. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. And we'll see you on another edition of Punchlines. Thank you very much. I am out, at least for now. You guys enjoy the rest of your day.
Gorilla than the planet of the apes. I write a punchline and plant it on your face. Eat a punch that you ain't even got to taste. Here's a shot that you ain't even got to chase.